going on? RGIJ is back, baby. So, ladies and gentlemen, our audience, today's a special day. I know me and Mike have spoken about having guests on our podcast, and we definitely were thinking about it, and we decided that the first person we wanted to bring in was a mutual friend, somebody that we met while we were in Honduras. He's an active duty service member with the Air Force still, but we came across paths in Soto Cano. We worked together out there, and we basically stayed in touch with him ever since. Now I believe he's stationed in Texas, or no?
Yeah, Lackland Air Force.
So,
JBSA.
Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, our first guest for today. Big applause for the regular G.I. Joe podcast, David Noriega, a.k.a. Nori. What's up, man?
What's up, man? How you guys doing, man? It's good to see you, boys.
It's been a long time. I think I know we keep in touch on phone and everything else, but what's been up with you, man? What's going on?
Oh, man, home owning, kids, raising my kid. You know, it's our one and only kid right now. Maybe adopting later. I don't think we're gonna have one, but just life, you know. Deciding whether I'm gonna retire or stay in for maybe an extra year, but we'll see. We're just waiting to see what happens.
So where are you at now? How many years?
Dude, I'm at like 18 in like 3 months.
Did it go by quick?
So as I look back, I think it did, but there's a lot of memories in behind there, like that made it seem longer. I think as I see these young kids coming through, whether it's through the pipeline training as a SERE specialist, it makes me feel old because they'll be like, hey, I was born in whatever. And I'm like, oh, shit, like I've been in for 18 years. It's kind of weird to see them. But, yeah, no, it definitely it feels like it went fast. But at the same time, there's a lot of memories to kind of remember that a lot of time of the 18 years.
So I know when me and Mike first started this, we talked about how we transitioned going from being military lifestyle to now civilian lifestyle. Is there anything that you're nervous about as you think about retirement and what's going to happen next? So for me, like I told Mike, when I went back to school, that shit sucked. Being fucking 39, 40, dealing with these fucking young kids, you know what I'm saying? The only thing that was my saving grace was that I already came in with experience. I had life experience. You know, the military gave me an experience, you know? So I was able to do my education, understand things, know time management, things like that. So that was one of my nervousness of transitioning out. Is there anything that you feel like you're going to be nervous about?
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. I think about it like it seems like day to day. I tell my wife like, I don't know if I'm ready to be done. It's everything I've ever known since I was 18. I joined pretty much. Birthday's in August. I joined November that following year, and the rest is history. So I had a job prior to that. You know, I was a freaking buster at Fuddruckers. Worked all the way to cook. Had a short time at Buttercrust, working as a line worker. Loading bread and sweets onto damn 18-wheelers. But besides that, you know, it's like everything I've ever only known, and it's kind of hard to go, is it my next chapter or do I keep going? And so it's almost like saying, what do you do afterwards? And so still undecided. It's based on where my wife kind of wants to stay. Yeah. I don't think Texas is going to be our end-all, be-all. You know, I'm from San Antonio. I'd like to stay, but city's too busy. We kind of want to go to a smaller town. It's just that's what.
Yeah, it makes sense. Your football team sucks, so it makes sense.
Next year.
It makes sense that you don't want to be part of the San Antonio area anymore. The Spurs are garbage, so we can't really talk sports because Mike doesn't really like sports. So we won't talk too much of sports.
I don't even know what you're talking. I didn't even know the Super Bowl was going on until he mentioned it, like in a group text. So.
Dude, he lives under a rock or what, brother? Come on.
Dude, I mean, it's like, you know, I do everything I do, and I like UFC, but I don't have time for that stuff, really. I'm so preoccupied with doing what I want to do with things that it's like, you know, like when it goes to Netflix, like if I get 15, 20 minutes, I'll watch like an anime episode, and that's what I'm watching. Other than that, like, man, I don't know anything going on. Like people be talking about stuff. I'm just like, I don't know, man. I'm just oblivious to it all right now.
All you just gotta know is that the Cowboys are trash. That's all you gotta know. So if anybody asks you anything, you're like, yo, the Cowboys are trash. They're garbage. They had a good record. I don't know what happened to them. They made it as far as they did, and all of a sudden they got bumped off. But what I do want to ask you, Nori, like I told Mike before in some of our conversations, my nephew joined the service. You know what I'm saying? I was really like, I'm pro military. Not just because I've been in it, I saw what it did for me and everything, my career, I made a career out of it. I got retirement and everything else. So when my nephew wanted to go, me and my brother's a Marine veteran. I have my other brother that's still serving in the Marines. My other brother was in the Navy too. So the brothers, we were all military background and everything else. So my nephew wanted to do it. We were all for it. You know what I'm saying? Now, my other nephew, he's getting to the age, he's still in high school, getting to the age after he graduates, the parents want to go to school. So I was like, well, why not the military? And they're like, hell no. You know what I'm saying? So do you think like your son, he's at a young age and everything else, but if he comes up after high school and everything and says, Dad, I want to join the military, you'd be okay with that? Like, do you feel military is a good path to take for these youngsters?
Yeah, so I'll tell you, I think we've talked about this probably back in Honduras and stuff, but my parents had me at a really young age, man. They were 14, and my dad retired Army. He had a break-in service where he did guard, but he ended up getting deployed 3 or 4 times in the last part of his career where he could fully retire and still get a pension, kind of like normal because he already had like 14 years in. But it got him everything he has now. And with me, the only thing that was me was he was just like, hey, son, I want you to walk away with something that you can use on the outside. And so I started as a mechanic, as most people know, like, I was a C5 fuel systems guy. I didn't mind the job, but it wasn't like something I was wanting to go to work, to go do every morning. Right. So that's why when I transitioned active duty from active duty reservist to an active duty guy, they were only taking, critically demand jobs, and SERE was one of them. So yeah, if my son, the biggest thing I'll tell my son, and I think everybody that's kind of going, like, oh, I don't want my kid to do it. If you don't want them to join the military, I would definitely encourage them to leave their hometown. So my little brother, he's 18 years old, or he's going to be 18 in about a month, and he wants to join the service, but now he's kind of like, well, I kind of want to go to school. But the only reason why he's having second guess, and we've talked about it, we were talking today about it, is he has mom and dad there as like that, so like that safety net, but that safety net ends up being like, it weakens him to be able to be a better person or to be a better man. So I encourage people, if you're not going to join the military, go to school somewhere else where your parents aren't there to kind of help you through things, because it's going to be you that gets you out of problems. Mommy and daddy aren't going to get you out of problems every time. And maybe they do, because I know some people are well off and they can always rely on mommy and daddy to be there, but some people didn't. I knew that if I stayed here in San Antonio, I was going to probably end up like most of my friends that, stayed here. And I'm not saying they're bad off or anything like that, but they struggle, and so with me, they're like, man, I'm so glad you joined the military. And we talk about it all the time. They're like, man, you're doing really good. And I go, yeah, in comparison to, people that graduated from Southside High School in San Antonio, yeah, I think I'm doing really well. But when I compare myself to other people outside of that, I'm like, oh, like there's levels to success, right? And so I'm still trying to gain that, right? I'd want more for my son, more than anything, but I wouldn't deter him away from the military. Whether he wanted to do a combat job or not, it's what he's into. And so I encourage him to be your own person, get out and experience the world, not just your hometown, because everybody knows what happens when you just stay home. So that might be biggest advice.
Awesome. So let me ask you this. So I read an article today about SERE. There was some Army article about the officers going through it and everything else. Can you elaborate what SERE is, since you're a SERE specialist? Like, just give us a synopsis of what it is, not too long, but just so people, the audience understands that when you say you're a SERE now, what is that?
Yeah, so we're SERE specialists. It's survival, evasion, resistance, and escape. We advise and prepare people that are high risk, medium risk of isolation, that the potential for isolation. We prepare them to come home, right? And so that's kind of it in a nutshell, not getting too deep into it. But when I say survival, evasion, resistance, escape, if you apply those to the terms of like combat or in a situation in other countries where you can find yourself in a pickle, we show them a certain set of skills so that they can bring themselves back. That's what we do. We advise and prepare people in a nutshell that kind of get people prepared for those situations. So whether it's high risk, moderate risk of isolation, that's kind of
now the candidates, are they just mostly officers that do the training? I say that because I'm sure, I don't know if Mike, I'm sure Mike had this too. We had our CBT, right? our controller training online, and one of them was the sere training that you fucking go online, you look at videos, you know what I'm saying? Like you do shit that I'm like, if I'm in a situation, I'm not gonna remember any of this shit. You know what I'm saying? Like I'd rather be like, I'm sure officers go through the classroom setting, they do courses, obstacle courses, whatever. So that way they understand, like, if I'm lost, this is what I'm supposed to do, right? So refresh my memory. In Hondo, wasn't there a real world person that was lost at sea or some shit that you guys had a fucking...
that was during my time, but that was a Honduran national. So we're kind of hands off at that point. Like and that's because usually the host nation has the first right of refusal. So it essentially is they have to pick up their own. Now, if they can't for whatever reason, they can ask for support, which we're there. But we kind of like to let them handle their business. If they can't handle their business, they can definitely ask. So in that situation, if I remember right, he fell off the ship or the boat that they were on. He had an LPU or didn't have an LPU and sank to the bottom. So, and he had full on gear, you know, and so he sank. And so initially, yeah, that was kind of scrambling for a moment because the first thing I hear is someone fell off the ship. And in my mind, I was like, oh my God, hopefully it wasn't one, a U.S. service member or the Department of State guys that would work with those guys. So, turned out it was a Honduran, and we were kind of spun up, but at the same token, it was kind of like waiting for the host nation to decide on what they were going to do. And I think, if I recall, they ended up finding his body later when they went searching.
Mike, do you remember that in Hondo? Mike was gone. He's too busy making Excel spreadsheets and shit.
Yeah, like when I think back on our time there, man, like my memory is so bad, but like I remember a lot of us, again, most of the partying, most of the time us chilling. Like Nori and I, like Nori would show me things, and we talk together, and he'd always, like, for some odd reason, I don't know why, he would wear those what are those, like, the freedom panties or whatever they're called? Like, what are they? Like, yeah, he would kind of wear it all the time. It was a little awkward that knowing that, like, I don't know why. I think it was just trying to show everyone what he was doing in life and stuff like that. Because he'd be wearing silkies and then no shirt walking around. You're like, dude, I know, like, you're not wearing no underwear. It's kind of awkward between the both of us.
Did he used to walk around with his dog tags too, right? He had his dog tags on and shit. He was like fucking Maverick from Top Gun over here.
No, that's only you, Izzy, man. You're the only one who's still rocking dog chains in the Air Force.
It's funny that you mentioned silkies, because I don't know if you guys are aware. So there's this Facebook group page they call the Irrevelent Warriors, and it's a bunch of veterans and everything else. And what they do is they promote silky hikes, and it's only veterans. They don't allow any sort of outsiders or anything like that. And what you do is you show up like combat boots or whatnot, in any type of silkies, you know what I'm saying? Like the marine kind, the running, jogging kind, the ones you always wore in Honduras kind, whatever it wants to be. And you wear just different things from what branch you were in and everything. And you basically talk to other veterans, get to meet other people and network and everything else. So if you're ever interested in it, it's pretty cool. My buddy did it. He had a lot of fun. He showed me videos. He would have one of those pouches for water, but he'll put like alcohol, like he'll put a rum and coke in there and everything. And dude, the cops will cut off the blocks. Like they have a trail, and they will basically cut it off to where it's just only veterans. So you can't really bring like your wife, your brothers or anything unless they were veterans too. But it's just veterans, man. You basically do 3 stops, one for breakfast, one for lunch, and one for dinner. And then at the end of the hike, you just made new friends or whatnot. So we were supposed to go to it this Saturday coming up, but it got canceled because we were doing we got to do a birthday party. But they was doing one in Fort Lauderdale. But if you guys like that stuff like hiking and things like that, you should look it up because they do it statewide, Texas, Cali, Florida. But they're called silky hikes. So you look at your city. So here they have one in Fort Lauderdale. So we put, Fort Lauderdale silky hikes. And they show like there's an ambassador, there's somebody in charge, like an OIC. You sign up with them, register, and then you just go on the hike, show them your ID card, and you just meet. But my boy did, and he just had a lot of fun. I just remember that when you mentioned Nori's fucking little silky shorts, thinking he was the mini rock over here.
Yeah, I don't wear those anymore. I think if they improve the liner on the inside, I think a lot more people would wear them. I feel like that's a young man's game. I still people like older people running around with them. They are comfortable. You just got to get used to wearing short shorts. And I got
Nor
that. I think that was like a rite of passage. Like I wasn't used to that, man. Before I joined the military, I wasn't a. I went fishing as a kid. You know, that was me and my dad. But man, we didn't go camping or hunting or anything like that. So when I joined SERE, you know, and they were like, hey, you got to buy these shorts and you have to wear them when we go on our runs and work out and all that stuff. And I wore nothing above my knee growing up. Like to us, that wasn't cool. It just didn't feel right. And so it took me about a month to go, all right, I guess this is normal. And now I don't like wearing anything below my knee for that reason. I got so used to it that I kind of just kept it going.
Nori's understanding as we get older, gravity takes effect.
Yeah.
So he wears those silky shorts and something's going to fall out or something. He's going to be like, oh shit, I'm exposed right here.
Yeah, they get a little tight too. So,
but speaking about that Irrevelant Warrior, like what's cool about that though is actually like, you know, and it's coming up to you, Nori, like you're getting to that point where you're deciding what do I do, and then on the other side that, you know, Izzy and I are on, man, you find out like you know, Izzy has his family, so he has a lot more military, but where I'm at, man, I'm normally the one that veteran that they be like, you know, I mean, you're that veteran and stuff like that, and it's weird because like there's so many things, like, you know, a joke you would say, and it's like for us, we would laugh, we would joke, it'd be fine, and other people they're like, damn, that's dark, you know what I mean, or like, you know, there's certain weird things where it's almost like I think I told Izzy this, but it was like maybe a year or two ago, and I moved back from Japan to Texas, and I'm out to eat. And like, they asked me a question and I was like, well, you know, I'm kind of like, you know, shy. I'm kind of like quiet and that. And the lady was like, yeah, because he went to Iraq and he saw so much crazy shit. He like messed him up for like, kind of just like, you know, in her head, like it was like, you know, Pobrecito, we should like, just like say thank you. And like, how are you doing? Like, you know, I mean, to her, I was like, you know, like how you're so brave for coming out to the public and, you know, like shit like that. Right. Cause the world we live in, it has a weird opinion about the military because like what Nori's saying, like what Nori did, like serious shit. He would always tell me about it. I'm like, it sounded so much fun. He sold me 1,000,000 times over it. But like the job I had, you know what I mean? Like that's still military, but I think about it today, like, you know, like what skill sets I got. I know how to write emails. I know how to file stuff. Like, you know what I mean? I'm very good at that. Like office work, I'm good at it. Anything else, like if someone's like, man, tactics, like what this, I need clear room or how, I'm like, I don't know. How close do I follow people? I don't fucking know, man. But I know that if I want to piss somebody off in the email, I'll put their name last or, you know what I mean? Like I know that shit.
You use certain abbreviations and then they don't understand.
Yeah. You know what I mean? But that's the real life that like some of the military is so vast. And, you know, when you're coming to that, Nori, like what kind of things do you think that you're looking at now? Because your job is an instructor too. Like you have a badass job. What are things you're looking at as the next journeys come along that you're going to utilize?
I think we try to get our leaders to understand that we're not just SERE specialists, and we get stuck in positions where we're only doing SERE stuff, and I think that's Air Force wide kind of thing. Like we're specialized in that one thing. But the biggest thing that I think SERE specialists bring to the table, even afterwards, like I could use my experience that I have as SERE to go do pretty much anything I want. But what we bring is we're natural leaders because we do it at such a young level. Like as an A1C, I had a crew of 10 people I'd take out to the woods, and I was alone with them with the radio, and I made all the decisions. I had to make the right calls. Some of them were bad calls. But at the end of the day, I had to keep everybody alive and not get anybody hurt, including myself. But and they ranged from all ages, from all AFSCs that were labeled high-risk isolation, mostly aircrew. But it's the confidence level. It's our decision-making, I think, is really we're able to make decisions quickly and, like, see them through. We're not people that second-guess too many times on what we're going to do. We're just kind of like, you give us a problem and we're able to do it. And we're problem solvers because our nature, like what we do out in the field, like survival, for example, there's nothing that you can open up in a book and go somewhere with it and say, all right, let me just read this book and I can know. Like, no, you have to go out there and actually see the problem, you know, whether it's building a fire shelter. And that's just survival aspect. When you talk about the other parts of SERE, it's that same thing. Well, you could read it in a book, but until you apply it, you're a problem solver. You're good at that. So Transitioning, I think it's the only thing that's hard for me is, do I want to keep doing seer stuff, or do I want to kind of leave that behind me and go do something different because maybe I'm getting tired or maybe burnt out? But I think everybody does that towards the end of their career. They're like, I'm burnt out, or I just don't want to be part of the military anymore. I kind of want to just be a civilian for a little bit. But my scare is that if I don't have a big problem to try to solve every day, then I'll just get bored, right? Because everybody always has the mindset of like, I'm going to get out and do something easy, like be a mailman or something, right? Work in the government, and oh, I'm just going to coast, But I think the people that say that, most of the times you see them, they're just like, nah, man, I need to do something that wakes me up every day, because we've been ingrained to do that for so long. And for me, that's probably one of the biggest ones. So more than likely law enforcement. I feel like we have a lot of confidence. There's a lot of problem solving that happens in interactions when you're being a law enforcement officer. So I think that's going to be my route. It's still undetermined. My wife has her own career, so whether she wants to continue that weighs on. We can't have two careers at the same time. I think right now we have that challenge where both of us have our careers and we have a son to raise. So obviously she has to take a knee more of the time so that I have to do my job. But if she continues, I might have to take a step down and support her career to the fullest, and I might have a job that's less demanding. And I'm okay with that, but that's kind of dynamic. We're still deciding that. It's not nothing we've decided yet at this point in time.
So the wife is on board. If you try to do law enforcement, she's on board with that?
She is.
Okay.
But it's undecided, because she might find a job that she loves and she gets paid really well as a civil engineer. That's another advice I'd give people. If you're going to do a job on the outside or a career, engineering, she's not had a problem getting hired the 3 places that we've been so far. And even the next place that we potentially be moving, I might be moving to Florida.
Let's go. Come on down.
I'll be at Homestead, but which is the southern tip. But we're gonna decide whether I got the assignment hopefully this week. So, but that's one of the big things, is deciding who's gonna have the bigger career after I retire. I said, let's just get through retirement first. Let's get that goal first, and then we'll decide what our family does from there.
I'll tell you this. I'll give my advice to you is, when I retired, I mean, I didn't have a family to worry about, so it made the transition easier. I didn't have a spouse to worry about or anything like that. But like I tell everybody else, decompress for a little. Take some you time. I took some me time. The first thing I did was I stopped shaving. I said, fuck shaving. I ain't shaving no more. I let my hair grow out. Let it grow real long. Even though Mike sometimes like, yo, you look homeless or whatever the case may be, I let all that shit grow. I'm like, fuck it. I don't care. Because I don't have to do it no more. You know what I'm saying? But I took 7 months to decompress, and then I decided I went back to school. Now, the biggest burnt right now is that people are like, why are you not getting a job? And I'm like, but why? Why do I need to get a job? You know what I'm saying? Because I could do it. I'm able to do that environment for myself because I have the access and the resources to do it. But I'm doing it to where I've got my degree, my bachelor's in emergency management, because that's something that I still want to try to maintain if I ever do get a civilian job. I'm going back to school starting tomorrow, but now I'm looking at doing Homeland Security. But the main thing is, one, decompress, and then try to get into something that you want to love to do, that you're going to enjoy going into work to do, and everything else. Because one of the talks me and Mike had was about morale in the workplace, man. When I was in Turkey, I thought I was going to call it quits from the Air Force, because the morale fucking sucked, man. It was fucking terrible. My leadership was subpar. Like, they were not good. I wanted to fucking fight my chief. Like, I know I would have got my ass kicked, but I wanted to get some licks on him, man, because he was a piece of shit. But if I didn't get the Honduras assignment, I probably would have said, fuck the military. I'm done. I can't deal with this and anything else, because the morale was so low. But definitely decompress and get into something that you're really going to want to like to do and everything else. You know what I'm saying? Did COVID hinder anything? Was COVID good? Was it a positive thing? You got to spend more time with the son, or did it affect you and your wife's work, or what?
It affects kind of the daycare situation. I think we just ran into that right now, but probably like since COVID, we probably had 4 times where they shut the daycare down. And luckily we're in San Antonio where my family's at. So it's an easy button. I can just have my mom watch them if she can. So it doesn't really hinder us, but it is annoying because we still have to pay for his daycare regardless of whether he's there or not. So yeah, I think financially it was just kind of annoying that we had to do that and find other options. I know it's not like that for everybody. I think that's our biggest hurdle, was that, like, childcare when both of us are working and they shut down, the school because of a COVID case or whatever. And then it kind of now falls on us. And then I have to tell work, hey, I can't show up because my kid was close contact. At the beginning, it was worse. Now it's kind of like, hey, just quarantine, but you could still come to work as long as you're not symptomatic and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I think COVID just kind of, at this point, it's still hindering. It's still hindering as far as like for childcare for us. As far as everything else, not really on our side. But I will say what you kind of capped on is like relaxing right after, like having a decompression. I think I'll have that. What I would tell people, and that's what we're thinking of right now, is like our goal is when I hit my 20 or whenever I decide to retire, is we'll be not even just debt free, but just even more stable, because we know it's right on the horizon. And living with your means is important. You should be doing that at all times, but more importantly, obviously, towards your retirement, so that when you do retire, hopefully your pension and whatever you're going to get on disability or whatever that is, hopefully it's enough to sustain your family so that you're not having to break your back anymore. Because I'm getting old, and I will say I still work out, I still do everything I need to do, but it gets harder, right? And I think you guys know that. My back hurts, even bending to pick up my kid sometimes, and he's a big boy. I'm like, come on, man, like you could walk by yourself, man. But I think those things I kind of see on the horizon. And so definitely financial stability, security, hopefully you're investing. I think me and my wife are set up for that. So by the time we're done, it's not going to be something I'm worried about, so that I can take that decompression. Because there's a lot of people that can't do that. So like for you were able to do it. I'll be able to do it if I choose, or I could jump into something right away. I highly doubt it. I'm going to want that kind of decompression. Maybe we can go hiking for like a month or two and just live on the trail. Or I live on the trail by myself and kind of enjoy myself. My buddy's actually doing that, man. I will tell you, a friend of mine, he's a sere specialist, got out, was doing a GS thing for a while up in South Carolina. And recently he said, I quit my job. I'm going to hike the entire Appalachian Trail with his son. And I was just like, dude, that's awesome. Like, if you have the financial like stability and freedom, or live with so in your means that you're able to just up and leave and just say, hey, man, I want to go live free for 6 months, because I think it's going to take him 6 months. He's going to hike the whole AT trail starting in the springtime. So, but yeah, I want to do it. And it was cool. It was cool to see that. I think that's his way of kind of just getting out there and be free for a little bit. I think everybody has their way of being free. So,
yeah, I think like, going to what Izzy was saying, man, like, I got out in 2013 and I got out at 9 years. And I really did find myself in a big depression because I really missed it. Like, it was an emotional decision. It was actually because we had talked and I was actually going for sere. And because I was overseas at the time, they wouldn't let us fly to Lackland and take the test. It was right before they started doing it at the bases. So I kind of got upset and was like, oh, okay, I'll do this. And they wouldn't let me do that either. So I was like, fine, I'll get out. And that's what I did. And so it was a really emotional decision. And so I got really depressed getting out because, again, like, just like you said, same thing. This is all I've known since high school. I got out of high school and I went right into the military. And so for me, it was the same concept of like, I don't know what else to do. And then you start like mingling with other people and you find out like, I'm different. Like, we're weird. We're a little bit different. We have fun or whatever. And, I had a really big problems and I started having drinking problems. And one of the things that kind of saved me the most was my wife was like, hey, man, I need you to come back to Japan, because I was in Vegas supporting her, my two daughters, and my mom and her mom. And I was working at like Gold's Gym and making like 500 every 2 weeks. Like, financial stress is like a word of like, this is coming down. I was telling Izzy, man, like when I moved to Japan, we were so broke. I was living off my Star card so we could eat Taco Bell, because that was the cheapest thing you could eat, right? Like, and I was telling him, like, man, like, rock bottom is rock bottom when you're like on Star Card. When you're on Star Card for gas and on food, like, you're fucked. You know what I mean? Like, shit's rough. It's a reality of shit, you know what I mean? And what's crazy is like, it's bad. And and the thing too is like, you're in trouble. Like when you're having to use Star Card and the only reason why you're eating at Taco Bell is because they don't accept it the commissary at the time. And that, like, shit's like, all right, man, we got, and anyways, I say that because like, I had a great career. I had all those things, but I wasn't prepared for the outside of what it would do mentally for me. And I've worked for the government. I've had GS jobs. I've done it several times. I've made good money. I've made 6 figures, all that shit. And I was like, you know what? I'm quitting that shit. I'm gonna go do this stuff for real estate. And I got my check back. And this is hilarious. I made, I think like $5,000 for real estate, right? But of course, I'm fortunate. I have the VA. I got other things. I have, money saved up where I could do those things. And, one thing that I'm finding myself out right now. So, I could sit there and say probably last year, I would still say I regretted getting out. Like I'd wake up in the morning and be like, man, I fucked up because, I see you're at the end of the game. Izzy's retiring. All my other friends, you're like, could I have made E8? Could I have made E9? Could I have gone this route? What would it have been like? Where would I got stationed at, et cetera, et cetera. And, I started finding those things out. But one thing I started doing was really doing whatever the fuck I want to do. And so like I was talking to Izzy today and it's like, I'm making another YouTube channel and he's like, dude, do you ever stop? It's like, this is my fun, right? Same thing with the problem solving. It's like, how can I do these things? Well, like, fuck it. We'll go do this. We'll create a podcast that we did. I got another podcast. I got like a couple other YouTube channels that I'm doing just for like trying to see what we can make out of them. And I found to me that was the most fun I've had so far is creating things and going that route and knowing that like, even though the military didn't teach me how to create things, the military did treat me how to organize myself, how to come up with goals, planning. And those things I think are like, I've been finding out that, and this is to wrap it all up, when you commingle with the actual civilian populace, man, you find out like there's a lot of things they were never taught. Leadership is one of the biggest things anybody I've known has never been taught. Like, it's like, man, you got people in their 30s and 40s and they've never even had a class on leadership. So sometimes when you get some of these leaders and you're like, oh man, you're 40 and you're still just trying to figure it out because you've never been taught this. You never had, and I think what's great for all of us is even though we're at a younger age, we still went to leadership and we kind of fucked it up. And so, as you gotten older, you kind of like gotten your rhythm down, you got your confidence in your system. Something happens, you're like, we're good, man. Even someone comes to you and says, hey, I have this going on. You're fine. You'll be fine. Trust me. I've seen this a couple of times. Here's some advice. And you're comfortable in your skin of leadership. And so, when it comes to transitioning, man, it's rough because I've known some people that are having the time of their life. And there's some people like me that were like, man, we're on Star Card time. Like it's rough out there. And so but the great thing that I like what you're talking about with your story is knowing the financial part. I mean, ain't nobody know about like the financial part, like investing. You got passive income. There's real estate. There's anything. And I think the hardest problem that you will have, and I think anyone that has, Izzy himself, myself too, is we're free now. Like, what do you do? Like, do you want to do you still want to do what the military does? If you can, right? Like I could do office job, but it would never be the military's way, right? Never. Same thing for all three of us. But the thing is though, is like, what do you want to do? And that's the hardest problem because I've jumped around from job to job and being like, man, the Air Force told me to do something. I did it. Now that I don't have to do it, guess what, man? Like I get up and leave. Like I've literally sit there and say like, here's my 2 weeks notice. I'm out. And they're like, what are you doing? I'll figure it out. Like I got 2 weeks. And I do figure it out. But that's the hardest problem is like, what do you do? Like do whatever the fuck you want to do. Grow out your beard. Izzy looks homeless half the time. I love it. For some reason. Don't know why. Like and the only reason why he cleaned up was because he was going to the Navy's boot camp and he didn't want to be like confused as Al Qaeda. Like that's just the reality of it.
They didn't even let me into the base. So I went, yeah, so it's because it's a boot camp base in Chicago, the installation commander felt that it was a restricted area. And you know me, I'm command post. I know restricted areas. So I looked at this fucking cop, MP, whatever they fuck they call him over there. And I was looking at him like, for real? He's like, yeah, man, I'm sorry, but there's a restricted area. Unless you had the trainee with you inside your car, that's the only way we could let you in. I was like, this is fucking ridiculous.